John, good morning. Thank you very much for your time. I mean, today is the 31st of March, and many people might have decided to rent from the 1st of April. They're expected to vacate their homes. Under lockdown, that's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, no, it has been it has been tough. Certainly, it's put a lot of plans on hold. You know, we've got tenants who are in occupation, who are trying to look for a rental holiday. You've got people who would have taken occupation on the 1st of April. And you've got people who need to start their fit out. You know, you need to start getting your office ready. And I think we're having a big rethink when you look at offices and taking occupation of them at the moment. It's kind of a new world at the moment.
Yeah, what kind of advice could you give? Let's just break it down in different parts. Let's start off, if ahead of the lockdown, you had already signed a lease agreement to move in on the 1st of April, what are your options now?
Your best option is communication. You know, I think a lot of the landlords are the message to us certainly is, come and talk to us. You know, we have various different structures which you can propose to the tenants, for example, and the big landlords, the listed guys are saying, guys, come and talk to us. It's not perfect. We're not going to be able to just say to you, listen, don't pay us rental, because they will go out of business. But there might be an opportunity to try and structure something. And certainly a lot of people are getting advice, getting professional advice, and seeing where they can try and get some form of rental abatement, rental restructure. And that's really what it's about at the moment, communication. Everyone needs to communicate, and there's a good feeling of, dare I say, Ubuntu. Everyone's trying to work together. Everyone's trying to muddle through this together. It's not happened before. It's a new normal.
Yeah, and that payment holiday that you might want to negotiate with a landlord, could that take into account the deposit that you put down when you rent it, for example?
Certainly, yeah. We've seen various different structures getting proposed. The one, obviously, is that you take a rental holiday now and you shift that out to the end of the lease, so you extend your lease by a certain term, or maybe a little bit more than that holiday, giving the landlord some benefit, but also giving you a benefit of the cash flow right now. The other one is to take that rental holiday and capitalize it into the back end of the lease, so you end up paying a higher rental for the second half of the lease. Another one is to try and drain down your deposit a little bit, which is kind of an agreement between yourself and the landlord to say, listen, can we eat into the deposit? We will replenish it in 6 months' time. And so it's just one of a number of solutions that people are trying to use at the moment to try and help one another out, because really the landlord's got to help the tenant out to stay in business. But the tenant also needs to help the landlord out, because if the landlord can't service his debt, well, the bank's going to start knocking. And if that happens, on a broader scale, what's going to happen to the banks? The bank's going to suffer big pressure if people aren't able to service their debt. So, it's a bit of a cycle at the moment.
Yeah, so the landlord could also go to the bank and say, I need a repayment holiday because I've got a tenant in that property, but currently they're unable to pay fully due to the situation. So it goes both ways. Now, these discussions, you say it's communication. Should you enter into some new written agreement as well to lock them down? Like, for example, let's use some of the deposit, and a few months down the line, I'll reinstate it. Should that be a written agreement, or is a verbal agreement good enough, John?
You always want to go to written. A verbal agreement can probably get across from a legal perspective, but everything must always be written. Otherwise, there needs to be an understanding. Otherwise, any sort of changes to an original lease agreement that you have always need to be recorded in writing, agreed to by both parties. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of a he said, she said when it gets to the end of it. And so I'd suggest always to put it in writing.
Okay.
It's just best practice.
That's best practice. Okay. Finally, John, let's say you've got a defaulting tenant who's not been paying rent, and you've been warning them. Now they're under lockdown. They can't move. What are your options?
It's difficult, huh? In the lease agreements, we look to, a lot of people have been talking about force majeure. And, if you actually have a force majeure clause in your lease agreement, it needs to stipulate what type of force majeure we're talking about, how long would that period be for that, neither of us can perform, the landlord can't give you the space, and we can't pay the rental. If you don't have a force majeure clause, you can go back to common law, the supervening impossibility of performance, and so there are all of these type of things that you need to look at. So you really need to have a professional actually look at your agreement to understand it and to advise you. But on the landlord's side, you're gonna if your tenant starts defaulting, can't perform, you are either going to sue for specific performance, or you're going to try and work with them to find a solution. And I would suggest in this market that everyone needs to be working together to find a solution. It really is a case of everyone working together. When you look at employees, let's work together so we can all keep this business going. Let's not say, well, it's us versus you. It's very much, let's all work together. You hear people, in our neighborhood, everyone's clapping at 7 o'clock at night, and everyone's trying to work together to try and get something done here, because we need to keep the wheels of this economy turning, and people need to understand that everyone's in the same boat. So it's an interesting time.
Thank you very much, John. Interesting time, unprecedented times. We've never lived through such times, but he's appealing for people to work together. That's the CEO of Galetti Corporate Real Estate, John Jackson.